Why did he say that? I finally asked my father after he stomped on the gas pedal, driving the car out of the Alpha's property. My father and the Alpha were talking in that room for quite some time, and I couldn't help but feel it was about me. I know the world doesn't revolve around me, but I can't shake off my intuitions. My father glanced at me from the corner of his eyes. That you might have to attend a ritual, he said, averting his eyes to the road again. They were talking about that for that long? That's all? I asked him in disbelief. It can't be, right? Yeah. My father nodded without looking at me. We also discussed some pact matters if you were wondering why I was in Alpha's room for that long, he added. Ah, that is understandable. Maybe my intuitions were wrong after all. Okay, I sighed. Can't I skip the ritual part, Dad? I'm not a big fan of slicing my palm to squeeze out some blood in a goblet. I winced. Just thinking about that gives me a headache. I don't heal as quickly as you guys as well. My father exhaled sharply. You know the drill, Cora, he began. Everyone here abides by the rules and customs of the pack. You might not be a werewolf, but that doesn't mean you do not belong here. That means you have to follow the Alpha's orders as well. He went on firmly. I ground my teeth together. If I only knew back then that I would have to go through rituals and all, I probably wouldn't have come back. But now that I'm here, I got to accept it as it is. All right, I'll endure it then. I sighed. Can you drop me off at the cafe? I wanted to wander around for a bit. The truth is, I need coffee to calm down. From the corners of my eyes, I saw my father's head whip to the side to look at me as if I talked in an alien language. You sure? He asked, disbelief evident in his tone. Yeah, why not? I asked, raising my eyebrows at him in question. Why does he look so bewildered? He cleared his throat. You hated going out when you were younger, he muttered under his breath, looking at the front again. I thought you were going to spend the rest of your stay locked up in your room. I made a face at that. Well, that's because kids were so bad back then. They always made fun of me whenever they get the chance. I shook my head, remembering the time I'd rather stay at home than go out. Now, I simply don't care anymore. I shrugged. Living alone in London for the past few years has taught me a lot of things. That includes enjoying my me time alone outdoors. Your mother was right, my father mused. You are a grown person right now. I scratched the back of my neck awkwardly and looked out the window. Thank you, I guess, I said, not knowing what else to say. My father dropped me in the heart of Orchard Square, which looked like a mini city. People were swarming around the shops, getting whatever they needed. It was nice to watch them, but it would have been nicer if they were humans. Whenever I walk past someone, I can feel their gaze on me. They probably forgot all about me now. They are interested to know why a human girl wandering around a town full of werewolves. I didn't pay any heed to them. I walked around the town for a while until I found a cozy cafe. I entered it without thinking much and went to the counter to buy a drink. The barista looked at me incredulously, but I kept a straight face as I ordered what I wanted. Are you new here? She asked me, her eyes curious. No, I shook my head, but it does feel like that. I answered her honestly as I paid for the drink. I could hear her confused gaze on me as I made my way to sit in the most secluded area in the cafe. I sipped into my coffee and sighed. My mood was instantly lifted. I took out my smartphone and scrolled through some social media apps as I had my coffee until a sweet feminine voice greeted me. Hi, you're Cora, right? I looked up to see a familiar redhead staring at me. Yes, I trailed. The truth is, I forgot everyone here as well. I studied the pretty woman's face for a second. I'm sorry, I can't recognize. Wait, you're B, right? I asked, a smile tugging at the corners of my lips. How could I forget one of the few nicest people during my schooling days? B's eyes lit up. I thought you wouldn't recognize me, she said, grinning at me in delight. She glanced behind her and beckoned someone. Hey, Justin, come here. I told you she would remember us. My eyes widened. Is that the Justin Parker? The one I secretly had a crush on a few years ago? I shifted my gaze from her to look at the approaching young man and held in a gasp. Yes, it was him, and he looked more attractive than before. He was smiling lazily as he made his way towards us. "Hi, Cora," he greeted. His eyes were light and friendly. "It's been ages, huh?" I tried not to blush. "Yeah," I said in a small voice, smiling at him awkwardly. My eyes went from him to Bea, who was smiling down at me still. "I'm sorry I couldn't recognize you at first. You looked a little different than before," I admitted, feeling like a jerk. Bea's smile broadened. "You look great, by the way," she chirped. "Justin and I were a little doubtful. We weren't entirely sure if it was you, but you're like the only human who was in this town before this, so I thought I'd come and confirm it myself." I smiled at her, nodding my head. My gaze flickered toward Justin again when I felt his eyes drilling holes at the side of my face. "Mind if we join?" he asked me, gesturing to the empty seats in front of me. I looked at the seats. "Oh, yeah, sure," I agreed, motioning them to sit. "Guess this hasn't changed, huh?" Justin grinned as he sat down in the opposite chair. "It is very you to choose this spot, away from everyone," he noted. I nodded. "To avoid any unpleasant encounters," I said. It didn't take long for us to settle into a comfortable conversation, talking about our good times and all the time that I was away from them. It felt nice to catch up with old friends over coffee. It turns out they both went to a local college and are now on their semester break. So you're going to stay here for a month," Bea said. "That is nice, because we are on a break too. We can spend plenty of time together just like we used to," she said, her eyes shining with excitement. "It'll be like old times." Justin nodded in agreement. "We should go to the lake we used to hang out at," he suggested. "Oh, we should," Bea nodded her head. "What do you think, Cora?" she asked, looking at me now. I smiled at them. "That sounds like a nice idea," I agreed. "I remember that place used to be our safe spot." "Yes!" Bea gushed. "Justin and I still go there now and then when we have time." I looked at Justin and then at her again. "Are you two dating or something?" I asked them unsurely, hoping I didn't offend either of them by asking that. Bea burst out laughing at my question. "What? Of course not." She shook her head. "I am waiting for my mate, and Justin here is a big flirt." She looked at him meaningfully. Justin's eyes widened, and then his cheeks turned pink slightly. "What? No," he whispered, yelling at her. "She is lying. I'm just super friendly when it comes to girls in general," he quickly said, looking at me as if he was making sure that I didn't think the worst of him. Before I could say something to that, I felt the entire cafe become so silent that I looked away from my friends to see what was wrong. "The Alpha is here," I heard Bea say in a small voice. Just then, Alpha Noah stepped into the cafe, radiating his power as he did. Everyone in the cafe stood up in respect and bowed to him. "Alpha." They greeted him and sat down when he motioned them to go back to do whatever they were doing before. I didn't realize that I was the only person who was sitting down until Alpha Noah's eyes landed directly on me. I quickly stood up and bowed my head, copying everyone's actions. "Alpha," I said, looking up at him again. Alpha Noah nodded his head in acknowledgement and went to the counter, probably to order his drink. I held in a sigh and sat down in my seat again, looking at my friends. "What were we talking about?" I asked the two of them. "About Justin being a flirt." Bea grinned at me. "Bea?" Justin said in warning, but Bea only laughed at him in response. I smiled at the duo, so that means both of them haven't met their mates yet. "Are you guys supposed to meet your mates by now?" I asked them curiously. "I thought you were supposed to meet them before you attain a certain age or something." I don't really know how this mate thing works, and I never paid attention to it before, because I am human, and that meant I probably don't have a mate. But I do remember how every werewolf in this town was so excited to meet their mate. That is not how that works. Justin shook his head. You meet your mate when the time is right. I hope the time will never be right for me, though. He sighed. I frowned at him. Don't you want to meet your mate? I asked him. He glanced behind before leaning towards me. I refuse to be tied to someone that I am predestined to love, he whispered. I want to be with someone because I want to be with them, and not because of some bond. B snorted. That is what he keeps saying. Wait for him to meet his mate, and he would be the first person to fall at her feet, she muttered, shaking her head. I won't. He gritted his teeth. B rolled her eyes at him before focusing on me. What about you, Cora? Do you have a life partner yet? I shook my head. Nope. She parted her lips to say something, but stopped herself as her eyes zeroed at something behind me. I didn't think I would see you here, Cora. I heard Alpha Noah's voice from behind me, and I sat up straighter reflexively. Both B and Justin looked at me in surprise when the Alpha casually acknowledged me. I smiled at them. I met Alpha Noah earlier today. I quickly explained to them before looking at the Alpha. Yeah, I was just catching up with some old friends, Alpha, I said politely. The Alpha looked at Justin and B. I didn't know you had friends here, he mused before fixating his gaze on me again. But I am glad you will have someone to hang out with. He smiled. Yes, Alpha, I'm glad too, I said awkwardly. He watched me for a few more fleeting seconds before nodding his head. He turned on his heels without saying anything else and walked away from there and eventually out of the cafe. I released the breath that I didn't realize I was holding and noticed that everyone in the cafe was looking at me, astonished. I cleared my throat uncomfortably and looked at my friends, who were wearing the same expressions. What? I asked, raising my shoulders a little. The Alpha just came to you and started a conversation, she said. Yeah, what about that? I asked. I knew it doesn't happen all the time, but Alpha Noah looked like a friendly person, so I thought nothing of his behavior. He probably talked to everyone else in this town. B and Justin exchanged a look. We have never seen him talking so casually to someone else before this, Justin said. My eyes widened. I thought my mom said that he was one of the kindest alphas out there. B nodded. He is. No doubt about that. But that doesn't mean anyone can approach him just like that, B said. I leaned back on my seat. Maybe he was just making sure that I am on my best behavior while I'm here, I shrugged. He did tell me not to cause any trouble during my stay here, I shrugged. B and Justin didn't look convinced, but half-heartedly nodded their heads. But you have to be careful from now on, B said. The most eligible bachelor just talked to you, and that means you will receive a lot of hate from those desperate she-wolves who are trying to get the Alpha's attention. I chuckled lightly. It is not something I am not used to getting. I shrugged. The hate, I meant, I said quickly before she thinks I'm bragging about the attention. Well, if you put it like that, B nodded. I spent a little more time with Justin and B in that cafe and exchanged phone numbers with them, so it will be easier to go out with them in the future before going back home. All the while, wondering why the unapproachable Alpha came up to me and started a conversation. My conscience says that he was just being nice, but something in the back of my mind said something else. I know it is irrational to be flattered, but I couldn't help it.